Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm listened with interest to the comments of the gentleman from Pennsylvania. I'm glad that he got a response, the minority got a response to their letter. I also sit on Judiciary, and my chairman, Mr. Jordan, has asked me to ask you about a letter he sent back in January asking you to appear before his committee. He has not gotten a response to that letter, and so I'd ask you, can I get a commitment from you to respond to him in the immediate future with several dates that would be during which you would be available to appear before the Judiciary Committee?
Of course, I'm going to appear before the House Judiciary Committee. I understand there are discussions about scheduling that have been going on. I don't think there's any problem in that respect.
There's been no response to the letter, so I think there's some question about whether you would be willing to appear. So getting your commitment to appear is helpful, and I thank you
willing,
for that.
More than willing.
I listened with interest to your statement, and I found it quite incredulous that you would talk about the rule of law when your department and so many in your department have done so much to undermine the rule of law. I want to ask, internal communications showed that the DOJ and the National School Boards Association extensively colluded prior to your memorandum back on October 4th of 2021, which inserted federal law enforcement into local school board meetings. In fact, you previously testified to the House Judiciary Committee that the sole basis for your memorandum was the NSBA letter sent to President Biden back on September 29th, 2021, only 5 days earlier. Is that correct?
It's not correct that that was the sole basis, and that wasn't my testimony. My testimony was that it was an important basis in addition to seeing many, many, many reports in the news of threats of violence and violence in the preceding period.
On October 20th, 2021, the FBI's counterterrorism and criminal divisions operationalized your directive, announcing to all FBI special agents in charge the creation of a new threat tag, Edu Officials, to track school board-related threats. Is that correct?
So this is an internal FBI operational working. I didn't know about it at the time. I've seen it now. All it is, from what I've read of the FBI's own testimony, is that when a particular kind of person is, when there's a threat against a particular kind of person, there's a particular kind of tag put on the information. So if it's a threat against an education official, it's put on education. If it's a threat against a Supreme Court justice, it's SCOTUS, S-C-O-T-U-S. The tags don't mean anything other than a way to track how many threats of this kind are aimed at particular kinds of people, so the FBI can figure out whether this is a serious problem or not a serious problem.
Do you know how many citizens were tagged with this threat?
I don't know. I think the FBI returned that there were, in their own subpoena response to Mr. Jordan, I think there were around 20 as to whom what are called guardians were attached to for further investigation. Yeah.
22 to be exact, and 6 were actually investigated by the Counterterrorism Division of the FBI. Citizens of this country who were trying to make their voices heard at their school board meetings and instead were tagged by the FBI as terrorists by agents of this government seeking to silence their voices. When it was discovered eventually that this was not the national threat that the Biden administration or the School Boards Association wanted it to be, why didn't you withdraw the memo?
So let me be clear about the memo. The memo was aimed at violence and threats of violence. It was not aimed at parents protesting to their school boards. In fact, it was very clear in the second sentence that that is constitutionally protected. The thing that is not constitutionally protected are threats of violence and violence. The memo was not aimed at parents in any respect. It was aimed at violence and threats of violence against school administrators and teachers.
And yet after it was determined that this was not a national threat, you refused to withdraw the memo, and the agents of the FBI continued to act as if your memo were still in force and still in effect. So would you agree that you just continue to put forward this false rhetoric to your agents that was not corrected and resulted in the investigation of hardworking American citizens just wanting to have their voices heard at the ridiculous indoctrination going on in their school boards.
The investigations were not aimed at hardworking individuals who were just trying to protest about
The documents you provided show that they were the opening of six investigations in your counterterrorism
My
division.
understanding is that there were no full field investigations opened at all, that all of them were in the end referred to state and local.
Exactly, where they should have been in the first place. It's
that was-
clearly a state and local issue, should never have started, and I yield back.